Hello again to this video clip series, My Journey to God in a Very Secularized World. This should be video clip 158. We're talking about this topic that you can also find written: do not abandon the church in this period of great crisis. As I mentioned in the last video clip, as a punishment from God, since the great majority of Catholics did not want to obey the church explanation of the Ten Commandments and so on. And Father Gabriele Amort, the Vatican's chief exorcist, after the Second Vatican Council, many did not obey the documents and shrewdly shifted the focus of attention from God to man. Father Gabriele Amort, Vatican's chief exorcist, said he explained this a little bit in an interview in 2001. He said, the Second Vatican Council asked that some texts be revised. Disobeying this command, they set about, with the help, can I add here, with the help of the Freemasons, they set about rewriting them completely with no thought for the danger of making things worse instead of better. So many rites, talking about the liturgy, so many rites came off badly from this mania to throw out the old and start from scratch, as if the church to date had always conned us, and as if only now the time had at last come of the great geniuses, the super theologians, the super biblists, and the super liturgists who know what the right thing is for the church. It's all pride. This is, and he continues, Amort, this is a lie. The last council simply asked that the text be revised, not destroyed. Pope John Paul II, as well as Pope Benedict, ordered in a very clear way the members, for example, of the Neo-Catechumenal Way to obey faithfully and exactly, to faithfully follow the liturgical books of the church. The three founders of the Neo-Catechumenal Way refused to obey these two popes in writing. If you want more information on this, read the article I published, The Neo-Catechumenal Mass. Also another article, Letter to Fellow Priests. The very few Christians who, in this prophecy of St. Francis, that he said that the very few Christians who obey the true sovereign pontiff of the Roman Church with a sincere heart and perfect charity, as St. Francis put it, are now looking for guidance in a church full of confusion and with a personage not canonically elected raised to the pontificate, who will endeavor to administer shrewdly to many his mortal poison of his error. There is now no longer unity under the divine revelation infallibly explained by the authentic magisterium of the church, but there is unity under a dictator who will not dialogue with anyone. I'm talking about Pope Francis. He doesn't dialogue with any cardinal or bishop or anyone who's not in agreement with him, as if he is the source of all truth. He doesn't dialogue with anyone who maintain that the absolute necessity to remain faithful to the revealed truth from God, and thus which cannot be changed by the world or by the whims of men. As Christ put it, he says, you cannot change even an iota or a dot will not pass from the law until all is accomplished. Matthew 5. Those with a sincere heart will suffer with those who do not want to obey the authentic magisterium of the church, especially regarding sexual morality and the progressive destruction of the Holy Mass to arrive at the ultimate desolating sacrilege that Jesus even talked about in Matthew 24:15 and so on, and also Daniel and so on. Many of these very few Christians, as St. Francis put it, have not studied theology having not studied theology, have been led to put the blame on the documents of the Second Vatican Council instead of the organized promulgation of a false interpretation of the documents, the spirit of Vatican II. Few people, including most priests and bishops today, have the discipline in the theological thought and problems to do as St. Thomas Aquinas wrote. He said, "Rarely affirm, seldom deny, always distinguish." In most seminaries today, there is no longer taught courses on logic or cosmology and so on, which helps seminarians to distinguish between good and evil and the subtleties of the traps of the devil that do good or harm. That do harm. And they don't study logic to be able to distinguish these things. This is why Pope John Paul II, among many other occasions, spoke firmly to the U.S. bishops against this pick-and-choose smorgasbord-type Catholicism that he spoke about in Los Angeles in September 1987. He said at that occasion, Pope John Paul II said, "It is sometimes reported that a large number of Catholics today do not adhere to the teachings of the Church on a number of questions, notably sexual and conjugal morality, divorce, and remarriage. Some are reported as not accepting the Church's clear position on abortion. It has also been noted that there is a tendency on the part of some Catholics to be selective in their adherence to the Church's moral teachings. It is sometimes claimed that dissent from the magisterium is totally compatible with being a good Catholic and poses no obstacle to the reception of the sacraments." And then he says very clearly, "This is a grave error that challenges the teaching office of the bishops of the United States and elsewhere. I wish to encourage you in the love of Christ to address this situation courageously in your pastoral ministry, reliant on the power of God's truth to attract assent and on the grace of the Holy Spirit, which is given both to those who proclaim the message and to those to whom it is addressed." Very few bishops put this into practice today. Very few. They're all afraid. They want to just please people, and they're afraid of what people think rather than what God thinks. Eternity is a long time. When one has acquired a logical way of thinking and theological discipline, one understands the great danger of lumping just about everything into the category of gray instead of analyzing the small black dots and white background. Either Christ gave us an infallible guide on earth regarding faith and morals, or Christ did not give us an infallible guide on earth regarding faith and morals, which would leave us totally in our own subjectivism and relativism, which would lead to our destruction. I want to discover the truth of God, which sets us free, not the truth of men or my egoism, which I will destroy myself if we have a little bit of humility. Lumen Gentium 25 clearly teaches that the documents of an ecumenical council are infallible. The Catechism 891. In the Catechism, paragraphs 888 to 892 tells us that the doctrines of the Church are essential in order to arrive to sanctity. When the Church, through its supreme magisterium, proposes a doctrine for belief as being divinely revealed and as the teaching of the Church, the definitions must be adhered to with the obedience of faith. This infallibility extends as far as the deposit of divine revelation itself. But to the ordinary teaching of the Church, the faithful are to adhere to it with religious assent, which, though distinct from the assent of faith, is nonetheless an extension of it. Thus, the documents in an ecumenical council expressed in human language the absolute truths which cannot be changed, even by a future pope for apparently good motives to make the non-Catholics feel more at ease, such as at a Catholic Mass, false ecumenism, false mercy, false love. Before the New World Order totally manifests itself,
there's needed to be in place a one world religion which will be emptied of all divine content and will be the mystical body of the Antichrist, which Fulton Sheen and Cardinal Biffy talked about. The church is the handmaid of the truth, not the author of the truth. The truth is God. The truth is absolute, even though we are living in a world today in which the culture totally refuses the possibility of the absolute truth. These very numerous modern enlightened people of today say that the truth must change according to the world, according to the consensus of the majority, and even according to each individual. This is exactly relativism, which Pope Benedict the 16th said is the most profound difficulty of our time. We will continue in the next video clip. May God bless you and Mary guide you.